Hi everybody, and welcome back to Plastic Models by a Regular Dude and the Peter Persson Tribute Build Part 10 of the Airfix 1/48 scale North American P51D Mustang, kit number A05131. Okay, so where I left off last time was steps 42 and 43, which was gluing these parts together, clamping them. So they dried up really well. There was a little bit of a overlap on the edge that could have been, my fault, but it was very slight, and it was very easy to sand down. So no problems there. So that's ready to go. Now it calls for these, don't know what they're called. I'm not sure. Are they stabilizers or stabilizer ailerons? I don't know, but it calls out to glue those in place, and I'll probably do that, but first I need to put these in here, and it's kind of hard to get them mixed up because of the way they're molded. They slot. There is like a notch right here, the little tab looking thing there, so they fit in there really well. Now what I'm going to need to do, I think, is I'm going to have to make sure that they're level and all that business, so that fits. But they fit together really well. Now this one's kind of loose on the right, but it should be fine, and I will make sure that they're pretty flat. But let's see. So yeah, I need to look at my references because it looks like there's quite a bit of a gap on the bottom here, and I'm not sure if I'm going to have to fill that in and scribe it or not. So I'm going to take a look at my references and see what they show. Okay, and looking at my references, I'm thinking I can't really find anything, so I'm going to err on the side of caution here, and I am going to hopefully you can see that that's quite a bit of a gap, and that's kind of weird because I'm not understanding why there's such a big gap there like that. But as I say, I'm going to err on the side of caution. I will glue this here, the top, make sure everything's lined up. Then I will use probably my Vallejo putty, and I will fill that in, and then once it cures really well, then I'll rescribe it. So first thing I want to do is take a look and make sure that I get the dihedral really correct. Now there's people that make jigs and all this kind of stuff to make sure that it's correct. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to eyeball it. I have a fairly decent eye, but I'm not going to get all crazy and do anything weird like that. So let's see. I will use the old handy dandy. Do me a extra thin quick setting, and I will glue it like that, and then eyeball the dihedral, which is the up sweep or down, or up sweep and hedral, I think is what it's called when it sweeps down a little bit, but don't quote me on that because I just heard it for the first time today. So I'm gonna let that set up for a minute before I tackle the other side. Okay, so I've got both of the horizontal stabilizers in place. They look good. And real quick, like, a lot of you have seen this before if you've watched me build aircraft on my channel, but this is a stand that is very helpful when building aircraft. assemble it yourself, and it's adjustable. It needs to be adjusted. It's like the wing part's too high right now, but it's designed to fit your plane like that, so you can work on it and stuff. You can tilt it, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. Like when I apply decals, I like to use this. Lower one side, raise the other, and it's at an angle, so I can do, you know, decals, and then I can do the same thing when I flip it over. But it kind of helps protect the parts from getting messed up. So I'm going to set that aside real quick, light, and see what we need to do next. So the next thing is supposed to be these control surfaces on the horizontal stabilizers, but I'm not going to do that just yet because I need to do putty underneath this. So let's see what else I can do here. So the next part looks like we're getting into the landing gear. So it is showing if you're going to do closed landing gear, you use this one piece here. But I'm not doing that. I'm doing mine with landing gear down, because I don't have the AF1006 aircraft stand that's sold separately. So I'm going to go ahead and do it on the landing gear, especially since it looked kind of weird being geared up like it's flying with no pilot in it, because I'm not putting a pilot. So first thing we need are B11 and B12. So I have the gear bay doors here, and couple of notations on this. Number one, there are no push pins, ejector pin marks in these doors, and the detail is really nice. Now some of you be saying, well, like, duh, but again, I've never built a Airfix kit before, and I gotta say that I'm really stoked and impressed with the way this thing's going together. Now these are supposed to be glued together, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these cleaned up and I'm going to set them aside, because I think before I go too much further, I need to paint the inside of the gear bays. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that. So I'm going to clean these things up here, and then I'm also going to have to paint these, prime them and paint them. Because once they're glued together, they will be nigh on impossible to paint in there without, you know, just getting all goopy and nasty and everything else. So clean these up. Now here's a thing that I didn't know until recently, and I find it kind of interesting that I've never really noticed it before. Not that I'm, you know, Mr. Observation or anything, but on Mustang gear bays doors, main doors, and it shows it on here, there is a kind of there's a delineation right here and here. And this part here was like more of a steel color, and the rest of it was aluminum. But I never knew that, and that is just really kind of cool. So you have this interesting strip of metal right here. You know, so that's pretty cool. So just, you know, a little interesting tidbit that I didn't know about. And, you know, some of you that, you know Mustangs are probably saying again, well, duh, you know, yeah, but hey, I am just not an expert, especially on air. I'm not expert on anything of this nature, but especially aircraft. I am just not real hip to. I know some basics, but, you know, that's about it. We'll get these cleaned up like that. Now, for those of you who don't know, an interesting note on the Mustang is generally whenever they landed, the gear bay doors, especially these main doors, were closed. Landing gear down, these would be closed. But as the pressure would bleed off on the hydraulic system, they would slowly flap down, like the wing flaps, or the flaps on the wings. Those would do the same thing. Rarely will you see a Mustang sitting on the ground with the flaps parallel with the surface of the wing. They dangle down. That's because the hydraulic system bleeds off, and they go into that relaxed position. So just a little tidbit for you there. See, this is the hydraulic actuator right here, and it would just open up. So anyway, enough of that. I'm going to get this here part prepped for paint, which basically means I'm just going to tape everything off around there and have at it. My book, this is what I was talking about. This is details of the inner main gear doors are shown here. When engine was shut down, the hydraulic pressure would hold these doors in the up position, but as the pressure gradually bled off, the doors would drop to this lowered position. And then here is that piece of metal strip that I was talking about. Really cool. Now, the color call out, apparently it said, let's see, some really good interior shots. I mean, they're not in color, but they're still pretty good. But it says zinc yellow, which is kind of a greenish yellow color. And from what I've seen, equal portions of green and yellow, XF5 and XF3 in the Tamiya range, will give the color that I need. So I'm going to mix some of that up. Okay, so I got my color mixed up here, and I did like I did with my other colors in the past. And what I do, if you missed out on one of my earlier videos, is I use equal parts, whatever colors I'm using, and X22 clear, which is gloss clear by Tamiya. And the reason I do that is it knocks the flat down quite a bit, so it's more of a semi-gloss, which makes it easier to weather and stuff like that. And I especially like doing on aircraft, because I like just a little bit of sheen on aircraft. And then, you know, and then X20A thinner, which is their non-lacquer acrylic thinner, alcohol-based. So let's see what my color looks like here. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. See that? You see that? Can you see that? Beautiful. All right, so it's probably going to take a couple of layers because it's a little bit thin, which is the way I like it. I like to build it up, and it's going on this black base. I'm not worried too much about in here as far as where the glue contact points are, because I will probably be using super glue for that. I like doing that on landing gear because I could be wrong, but I think plastic cement might weaken the plastic a little bit on a place where there's stress, like landing gear legs and stuff like that. So I'll be using super glue for that, so I don't have to worry about the paint so much being scratched off. And I'm using my Iwata HP M2 single action airbrush. Sorry, I'm trying to airbrush where you can see what I'm doing, but it's kind of hard with the camera. Now this is one, see, now, had many a conversation about paint. My last channel update, I talked about my giving up on water-based acrylic. And that is just because I don't have to worry about the paint drying up really quickly in my paint cup. I can spray the stuff and it's just jolly, no problems. I can set the airbrush aside, let it sit for a few minutes while I look at paint and talk and stuff like that. And when I pull the airbrush out, it's not going to be clogged. And I have zero tip dry with Tamiya paints. So, you know, that's just my thing. And as I've mentioned quite a few times, there are tons of people that just get stellar results with water-based acrylics, specifically Vallejo Model Air, which is what I've tried in the past. And, you know, I just can't do it. So I use Tamiya paints, and I like them. So that's me, though. Not trying to sell you on something, just telling you my experiences. All right, so I've got a lot of paint here, so which is kind of a bummer because I may have to chuck some of it, but I shan't do that yet. All right, so let's give it another layer. Now, hopefully you can see it on video there, but you know, as you can see, there's a bit of sheen to it, and that'll just make it much easier to weather in there. My washes will flow a lot better now. It's kind of shiny right now, but it'll dull down a little bit. So that is that. So I'm going to set that aside to dry. I'm going to clean my airbrush off camera, and we'll come back. All right, while the landing gear bay is drying, I'm going to jump ahead here to 52 and work on the wheels and landing gear. So first off, in looking at my, there's two types available. There's one with a like a diamond tread, and then there is one with just kind of a radial tread. That's what I'm going to use, because in looking at the references for this aircraft online, looks like the Swedish ones had the more grooved type tires. So that's what I'm going to use. So I am going to cut those out. So let's see, that would be oops, here, 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 and here. So I will glue those together, and then, well, first I'll trim off the majority of that. Oh man, that's nice. It's got flat spots for weighted wheels. Now that is epic. If more model manufacturers did that, there'd be some happy campers out there in the modeling world, because it would save you having to do it yourself. Not that it's that hard, but still, it would be kind of nice. And yes, I'm flicking these little bits of plastic all over the place. So let's see, so make sure you get the flat sides down like that. That looks pretty good. And then what I'm going to do is I'll sand that high part there, get the sprue gate attachments there all taken care of. So that looks pretty good. All right, so let's see here. Get the old cement. Make sure it's as lined up as I can get it. Give it a good squeeze. And go on to the next one. Now this video may go a little bit longer because if I can, I would like to get it to the point where the majority of what I have left to do is painting type stuff. So I want to get it to that point. So there may be a little bit of painting here and there, and it may make the video a little bit longer, and I apologize ahead of time, but I think that would be best. So anyway, let those dry up and come back. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is start cutting off some of these other small parts that need to be painted. Now, the next one, I've already got the wheels ready to go. I'm using toothpicks with a little bit of sticky blue tack, and then I've got the bay doors, got those clipped there. And then I also need to do, this is D20 here, the other side is D21, so I'm going to mark D20 and then D20 I'll just remember what it is. That way I know which side goes on what. Now something to, here's one thing I want to bring up is these are pretty tiny parts, and these have a little bit of seam line action going on and a very little bit of flash. So that's going to take a little bit of cleanup. So what I'm going to do is I am going to, using my usual method of cleaning up and without boring everybody to death, I'm going to go ahead and do both of those actuators, D20 and D21. This light I'm going to do is a totally separate part. I'll do that later. I'm going to do the landing gear legs, and I'm going to do the other gear bay door parts. Get those ready as well. And it's all going to be separate stuff. I'll glue them all together later, I think. But anyway, I'm going to cut all these parts off and get them ready. And that way I can move on to primer. And that will take care of the majority of the actual aircraft parts, sands, tanks, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to work on that a little bit and then come back. All right, so all of the pieces I need to paint and prime, or prime and paint I should say, before I install them are right there. So the next part I need to do is the propeller and the windscreen and the canopy. So I'm going to have some gluing and some masking to do. Now all of these weapons, drop tanks, and all that kind of stuff I am not installing because this is, you know, a Swedish aircraft, and I wouldn't think that it would be all decked out and ready to go to war if they're using it, you know, during peacetime. So that's why I didn't do that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out the parts for the propeller, which is C17 right here. And then we need D63, D46, and D59. So that, and that. So I'm going to do the same thing, get these cleaned up and ready to go, make sure there's no flash or anything weird going on here, and get this ready to prime and paint as well. Alright, I got the propeller and the spinner parts ready for priming. So the next thing is going to be the clear parts. So I need to get the clear part E01. Then I need E2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these cleaned up and start priming them. I also need to do the gun sight, so I'll have to cut that off and get that ready. And that was, let's see, what part was that? That was. Let me look. So we need E9 is the gun sight, so we can't forget that. So cut that off, get that ready to clean up. Then we need part D35, which is this one right here. D35, then we need D10 and D50. So there's D10. And then D50 is this one here. That should be all the parts for that. So I will start cleaning those up and then talk a little bit about where they go. Alright, I got some of these parts cut off. So what I need to do is do some masking. So the first thing I'm going to mask is the gun sight. And I basically just cut off a piece of Tamiya tape here. I'm putting it on the front. And then I'm going to cut off another smaller piece. And put it on the back. Like that. And kind of pinch it on the sides. And on the top. And that way it'll keep it. If I get any on the edges, it's not that big a deal because I can scrape that off. But that looks pretty good. Got one more small piece. So I can overlap the top to keep it from getting down inside. Alright, that should hold it pretty good, like that. So then I need to glue this onto here. So I'm going to get a little bit of cement and put in that part. Like that. Make sure it's straight. Put just a little dab more to make sure it sticks good. This is all prep to get this stuff painted. Now this part here goes there. But let's see. Set that aside. Okay, so next up is doing a little bit of masking. So the first part I masked was the front windscreen side windows here. And I was going to show how to do it on video, but I've done that before. And just real briefly, what I did is I got some Tamiya tape. And the reason I like using Tamiya tape is I can stick it down to my cutting mat, trim it, pick it up again, test fit it, put it back down, trim it some more, and it doesn't lose the amount of tackiness that I need to make it stick. So what I did is I would smash a piece down on there, and then using a toothpick / cocktail stick, I'd burnish it down around the edges really well. Then using this pencil here, I just basically outline it. Take the tape, stick it to my bare mat, not on this paper, and then carefully trim it, test fit it, see if any more trimming needs to be done. And that's what I did on the sides and on the front. Now sometimes I have trimmed it right on the canopy, but in this case I was going to do it, and I found that the edges of the canopy here are a little too roundish. So as I like to do sometimes, I'll whip out a quick illustration here. Like if you were looking at a cross section of the canopy, ideally this would be the outside edge of the canopy, like this part here or this part here, and it would go in a little bit, and then the glass or perspex, whatever it is, okay, a nice square shoulder. That way when using the knife blade comes in and it has a nice sharp edge to follow. Well, on this kit it was more like this in cross section, so there's not a nice sharp edge to put the knife. So you know, you risk wandering up or down the edge and either marring the edge of the metal portion of the can or windscreen area, or sliding up into the glass, which you definitely don't want to do that. So that's why I did it this way, and it worked pretty well. I don't know if I'd want to do it on like a whole bunch of stuff. It might be kind of tough. And normally I like to get masking sets, but I didn't look too hard for a masking set for this one, and I figured I could just do it the old school way. So the other thing I did is I scraped the paint off here, so this will be ready to glue into place here, and it fits really, really well. And I'm going to be using, now that paint scrape right there is going to be behind this painted part here, so you're not going to see it, so there's no sweat there. Same with that scraped part there. There's no, you're not going to see any of that. So everything's cool there. So I'm going to glue that in place using Tamiya Extra Thin, but I'll do that in a minute. So the next part I want to do is I want to mask this off, and the way I'm going to do that is with some Tamiya tape. Let me move my camera back just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. So I've got a piece laid out here. So what I'm going to do, what I like to do is for this front edge, the part I'm going to do right now is the part that goes across here. So what I like to do is I like to cut my tape at an angle. Not too severe of an angle, but an angle nevertheless. And that will serve as the starting point on the one side. Okay, so you know what? Because of the curve of that, there's more of a curve because of the bulge of the canopy. I am not going to use the Tamiya regular yellow tape. I'm going to be using the vinyl, flexible vinyl tape. But I'm going to do the same thing. Cut me a nice sharp edge there. Then stick it on there. And then stretch it across. Like that. Then just carefully using my knife, I'm going to mark the edge right there. Cut that at an angle. And that part is ready to go. So I'll put it back in place. Making sure that it's right up against the edge. Oh man, this can be tedious, but it's the only way I know how to do it. There we go. All right, then stretch it across, following the contour. Now it's a little bit short there, but whenever I cut the part for the to go around the edge, it'll take care of that right there. Actually, you know what? I could pull that back a little bit. That's a little too far down. There we go. Yeah, that's better because it's not overlapping now. And just, there we go, that's perfect. Not perfect, close to perfect as you can get with my abilities. All right, so there you go. It's across all the way. Okay, now basically using the same exact procedure, I'm going to go around this way. Now for back here, I'm going to try and cut a piece using this here. Okay, burnish that down. And this will serve to for the really hard curve here. Then the rest I can do with the vinyl. So using the raised edge as a template, just go around like this. And there you have it. So then, now you may not be able to see me cutting it because of the angle, but you know, you'll get the idea. Using a really sharp blade. There we go. That looks lopsided, but one side's longer than the other, and all I need to do is just get that really sharp curve there, so I'm not sweating it too much. Now, it's got kind of a high spot, so I'm going to carefully trim that off. See how that looks. Okay, still got a bit of a high spot here. And again, that's what I like about this tape, is it maintains its stickiness without being too sticky and pulling paint off. Knock on wood, I haven't had any problems using the paints I'm using for this project with paint lifting with Tamiya tape. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, I need to twist it a little bit. I'm gonna monkey around with this a little bit and not keep you on the scenes here until I get it fixed. All right, so there it is. So now I will simply get some of this tape and do the same thing I did here, but I'll start one here and stop about there, start one there and start about there. That way I don't have to worry about it being the exact length. And then I can just use regular Tamiya tape to fill in over the top. And there you go. It's all masked and ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this into place after actually what I need to do is I need to paint the part that goes inside of here first, and then I can glue it into place, put this into position, then I can temporarily glue that into position. So I'm using all this as a mask for the for inside there, and I'll be ready to paint. So let me work on that a little bit, and then I'll be able to start priming all of my parts. So I'm going to end this video here with this part because I'm at a stopping point. So next time when we come back, I will have everything primed and ready to go, and I can do those final little gluing those parts into position. I will have the flaps and ailerons and stuff like that ready to go, so I can do the final priming of the kit, get it ready for paint. So as always, thanks for joining me here on Plastic Models by a Regular Dude. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, hints, tips, or otherwise, please put them in the comments section below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. So until next time, thanks for joining me here on Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, and I will see you all later.